Hey folks, Lenny Lawson here, the car guru, back from a wonderful camping experience. Some of you may be saying, how can any camping experience be wonderful? Well, when you have a pretty nice camper, not the best, but not the worst. I've had the worst, tent and pop-up, and compared to those, this is like a penthouse suite. But now we have a travel trailer. Now that's one that you pull on a hitch on the back of a truck. We do not have a fifth wheel. Those are those odd-shaped things that go over the bed of a truck that have hook up kind of like a tractor-trailer rig. We don't have that. We don't need that, although we did go shopping for that. Didn't buy. Was able to restrain myself. My wife and I talked sense into each other as we were riding home from Camping World in Kodak, Tennessee. It's just across, well, I guess it might be officially Sevierville, but I think it's called Kodak. And right across the I-40 from Buc-ee's, one of the largest Buc-ee's in the world. But we went camping at a resort called Anchor Down. And my compliments to the chef. I mean, the guy who created this has very high standards. Everything from the landscaping. Well, number one, the location is unbeatable. You can see the Smoky Mountains in the distance, and in the foreground is Douglas Lake. And as it's filling full of water after the winter drain off, it is looking beautiful. And the grounds of this place, immaculately manicured, landscaped, massive fireplaces on most of the sites. I mean, it's wonderful. And we had reservations to spend 7 days there, and we came back to Greenville like 3 times and just back and forth. It's not that far for us. It's about 50 miles. For those of you not from around here, it's real close to the Smoky Mountains where Pigeon Forge and Dollywood and Gatlinburg are. Okay, we should all be up to speed now. But it was a great experience. We had a few issues, though. So when you own a camper and it's going to be staying outside during the winter, you have to prepare it for the winter by winterizing it, which means draining out all the water and installing antifreeze through all the water lines. And so, when you do that, you protect your water lines, you protect all your fittings, and, because when water freezes, it expands and can wreak havoc. Well, apparently, this past year, my service manager, bless his heart, went to winterize my vehicle and just didn't do a sufficient job because 3 of the 4 different outlets for water were leaking badly. So I had to call Ricky's RV Repair. So we're sitting at site number 20, which is the best site in the whole place. Best view. I made my reservation for that place in, the spring of 2023. And we just left. So, if you want site number 20, if you're going to be specific like that, then you're going to have to wait. We made other reservations for a coming time. It'll be in April of 2027 is when we get to go back to spot number 20. But since we had all these water leak issues, I had to get it repaired, and I did not want to pull it someplace else, and I had used Ricky's RV Repair before. So isn't it great when you can call somebody to come repair your car or your camper while you're while you're on vacation, and they'll come to your location and fix your problem? You know what his basic service charge was? This is before he does anything. This is for showing up, $280. So he replaced 4 cheap faucets, 3 cheap faucets, and also fixed another leak that I had. And he replaced the cheap ones that I had with cheap ones. I mean, they just don't make good camper stuff, as far as replacement parts. I mean, everybody that I talked to about campers, I talked to the people that repaired them. I had to take it down to his shop for another problem that we found. The toilet seat had broken. There's a flange that holds the toilet seat in place. It broke. I guess I weigh too much. And so I had to take it down there, and I said, well, if you come back tomorrow and fix my toilet seat, will I have to pay the service call charge? He said, yep, $280. plus the cost of the fixing the toilet. Yes. He said, but if you take it to my shop, then you won't have the service charge. I said, okay, where's your shop? And he told me. And he was gracious about it. I understand. It takes money to make a mobile operation go. And I'm paying for convenience. Do you pay for convenience? Are you willing to pay extra? We're going to talk about paying extra for stuff here in just a minute. But I took it down there. The service call on the faucets was $555. And then it was another $250 to fix the toilet. But it would have been over $500 to fix the toilet. So I felt really good. Now I don't have leaks. I'll just have to make sure that we winterize it better next year or find a nice warm place to put my 37-foot camper, which that doesn't exist. So after all of that, I said, honey, let's go look at campers. She said, we're not going to buy another camper, are we? I said, no, let's just go look. So we went to Kodak, to the Camping World, and that is the big organization, probably, I guess, the biggest camping dealer or RV dealer in the country, owned by Marcus Lemonis. You ever heard of him? He's a former car dealership guy. He was an adopted, I think he was from Lebanon, and he was an orphan, and he was adopted by this rich car dealer in Florida, and he was raised rich, raised in the car business, did really well, and bought Camping World, or bought an RV dealership, and then just expanded it to a nationwide situation. He had a program on, I don't know what channel it was on, maybe Discovery or something, but it was called The Prophet. And he would go into people's businesses and help them turn things around. I really got to where I liked Marcus Lemonis. But yeah, he owns Camping World. And it wouldn't surprise you to find out that he runs Camping World, or has each dealership set up just like a car dealership, except with even tighter controls. And I'll explain that here in just a minute. Now, I think I didn't finish something, and I tend to do that sometimes. After talking to all the people that work at these camping repair places, including Ricky, who works at them, I said, are there any campers that are any good as far as quality? He said, no, not in this price range. He said, if you spend less than $100,000 on any, probably $150,000, I think is what he said, on any type of camper, it's junk. Now, it has to be junk for one reason. It has to be lightweight. If they build it like you build a house and use 3/4-inch plywood flooring and 2x4 stud walls and stuff like that, then it would weigh so much that you wouldn't be able to pull it down the road. So, and most half-ton pickups or small SUVs or whatever wouldn't be able to pull a camper. So I understand that side, but he said all of the stuff that they make is the cheapest cheap that you can find. And so I said, will these new faucets last any longer? He said, well, if you winterize them right, they should last 5 or 6 years. Really? That's all? Yeah, you don't winterize them right, they won't last one winter. So they're all junk. So I go into Camping World knowing that they're all junk. And when I walk in, there's a nice receptionist, and she said, can I have your name, sir? Yeah. Can I have your cell phone number? No. What do you need my cell phone number for? Well, it's just part of the registration process before we can go back and look at campers. Okay. So I gave him my cell phone number. Can I have your email address? Jeez. Okay, yeah, here's my email address. And so finally she pages a salesperson to come up. And here's this guy, comes up. He's nice, friendly. And then he starts interviewing us. And I said, I just want to look at some campers. I want to look at something comparable size to mine. And so he found out what my brand was that I have and did a good job interviewing me. Just like I would want my salespeople to interview their customer to find out what their needs, wants, and desires are. And then he took us back to the inventory. Now, here's the difference between most new car dealerships and the Camping World or even a CarMax. You know what a CarMax is? That's that big used car superstore. Is that you can't just drive onto the lot and go drive around the inventory and get out of your car and look at campers or look at cars at a CarMax. The cars are behind a fence. You've got to run the gauntlet first. You've got to go through the reception process. You've got to be introduced to a salesperson, go through a little bit of a diagnostic on what your needs and wants are, and then they'll go back and let you look at vehicles. Now, he offered us a golf cart, and I said, no, we want to get our steps in. Oh, okay, so we just started walking, going through all these campers. And what started as a visit to a camper very much like ours, which is a travel trailer, next thing you knew, no, sorry, we were looking at fifth wheels that sell in the 150 to 160,000 range. And so, they do look better. They should look better, than a $40,000 or $50,000 camper. And so I can understand, folks, how this happens to you when you go into a car dealership and you go in to buy a base model Versa, Nissan Versa, with a manual transmission, and then you see that Altima over there. Oh, and then you see the Rogue. And then you have doubled the price, doubled the monthly payment requirement, and stretched yourself pretty thin. And it's hard to resist it. I guess the best way to resist it is to go in and buy what you go in to buy. Don't go look at the other things, the enticing, colors and all the different options that all these other things have. I mean, when you look inside of a base Nissan Rogue and you see the nice cloth seats, that's probably good enough for most people. But then the salesperson says, well, just for kicks and giggles, let's go look at this Platinum right over here. And you look at the Platinum. Now, why would he want to move you from, what you're looking at to a Platinum? Well, it could be because there's a bonus on the Platinum. It could be because he's an idiot and he just is trying to confuse you and take you off of something you can afford and put you on something you can't afford. Well, that's what this guy did. I mean, I could afford the more expensive camper, but there is no way that I'm going to spend that much on a camper that I use maybe 2 times a year. It makes no sense. But it was fun looking at them. But I've got the ability to say no most of the time. I didn't have the ability to say no when I went to the Orvis store. It's a clothing store where they sell outdoor, fishing stuff. And my resistance goes to 0 at Orvis. And they know it. That's why they send me all these emails all the time. But anyway, I dropped a wad there as well. But it wasn't going to happen at Camping World because we understood what our priorities were. And we got back, we knew by the time we got back in my truck in the parking lot and started to head back to Greenville, we're really to head back to Ricky's to pick up our camper where the toilet was being fixed. She looked at me and says, we don't need a camper. We've got enough camper for what we do. And I said, you're 100% right. That's why I married you. You said, you don't need another husband. You've got all the husband you need. See, I'm glad she thinks that way. So back to the Camping World. This salesperson that was leading us around, he said he has his real estate license. He sells real estate too. This is kind of a sideline for him. And from a knowledge standpoint, he was pretty good. I mean, he knew what he was talking about. I mean, we were all over the map. He did not try to nail us down on something and try to get us to make a decision. He was very flexible. When we asked questions, he answered them. I said, can I see a more expensive camper, something higher end than this? This one looks cheap. He said, yeah. So we went and looked at a different one that was higher end. And I said, well, this still looks cheap. Have you got anything else that looks nicer? He said, well, yeah, I've got this brand. We ended up looking at a Montana, and I don't know anything about these. The only thing that I would recommend for me to do if I was really serious about camper is just go look at the ratings, see what people are saying about Montana campers. And how does that compare to all the other different brands? There are so many out there. What I found out is that there's only about 4 companies that make campers, the biggest volume carriers or makers. But they have multiple different brands. It's kind of like General Motors at one time had Chevrolet and Oldsmobile and Pontiac and Cadillac and Buick and GMC and LaSalle. You didn't know about that one, did you? Yeah, they had a whole bunch of different brands underneath the umbrella. Well, that's the same thing with Keystone. Keystone is the company, but they have so many different names of different brands, and they represent different styles, different designs, and different price ranges, different levels of quality. I can tell you this. This should make you feel comfortable about buying a car today. First, when it comes to campers, baseline quality of campers is not good. It's really not. They're not built to last. Maybe 2 or 3 summers. That's about it. And then they start falling apart. The finishes on the outside start deteriorating. The things stop working. If you read the reviews like I did the other night, it's kind of scary. When it comes to cars, baseline quality is really good because it has to be, because they pay attention to the J.D. Power surveys and what J.D. Power says about their vehicles and their quality within, how many failures do they have out of each 100 vehicles. You're going to have so many failures. And by failure, I mean a warranty claim where you have to take it in and get it fixed. The manufacturers want to be at or near the top of the list. I don't think camper companies care about that because there's no definitive rating agency that rates campers. J.D. Power has a lot of power, and so they exert that power, and that's one of the reasons why the baseline quality on cars are really good. When it comes to campers, there's a lot of difference in quality at various price levels. As you go up in price levels, dramatically up in price levels, quality gets better. They're more hand-built. The manufacturing process is just a lot better. They use better quality materials. With cars, they use good quality everywhere. All of the cars have to meet crash standards, the same crash standards. And when it comes to airbags and safety equipment stuff, it's all, I don't care if you're buying a Nissan Versa, a really inexpensive car, or a Rolls Royce. Safety standard-wise, they have to meet the same ones. They face the same crash test. Now, where the difference in price comes is when you're talking about content and you're talking about the name of the vehicle. Just look at it. For example, a Toyota versus a Lexus. Same company. It's just the Lexus is the luxury division. And, they use a lot of the same chassis. Like, for example, I don't know if this is right or not, but a Camry may be on the same chassis as a ES300. They may not be, but I'm just using that as an example. The Camry has vinyl seats. Maybe it has plastic on the dash, whereas the Lexus has leather on the dash and uses real wood accents instead of fake wood, genuine simulated wood. So as you go up in price and go up in status, from a Lexus, from a Toyota to a Lexus, or from a Nissan to an Infiniti. What's another one? Oh, yeah, from a Honda to an Acura. Why do people do that? Because they like the content. They like the feel of quality, the smell of the leather, the comfort. Maybe the comfort of the seats are a little bit better. But the basic structure is there. The quality is good from the base model all the way up to the top of the line. Now, sometimes you'll have engine differences, like a 4-cylinder versus a V6 versus something that has turbochargers on it versus an electric, full electric vehicle. Now, selling campers may be a very profitable business, but it's not one I would want to be in. Just really for the quality reason. I understand. I asked Ricky, for example, that Ricky's RV repair. I said, what's the best camper? He said, probably an Airstream. As far as just a travel trailer. I said, why do you say that? He says they really are better. That's why you see people having Airstreams that are 20 years old. Now, there's still stuff that breaks on them, but there's stuff that breaks on a Rolls Royce or a Mercedes-Benz or a Porsche. But it's not very often, and whatever breaks is probably a pretty high-quality component. That's the way it is with cars. So if you're in the market for a camper, my sympathies. Make sure you're committed to it. I was up at the restoration shop where I have a couple of my long-term disappointments / projects. And I was talking to one of the guys that works up there, and he said, I'm thinking about buying a Tesla. And I said, why? He says, because they're beating up on Elon Musk so much. I said, is that a really good reason to buy a Tesla? I mean, do you really like EVs? No, I don't like the charging. I don't like a lot of it, but this is, just something that, call it a political statement. I said, well, that's the first time I've ever heard of somebody buying a car because of a political statement. I'll be back in just 1 minute. I'll tell you another thing I've never understood is why somebody buys a Jeep as an everyday driving vehicle, especially ladies with kids. Makes 0 sense. And you can tell it makes 0 sense because of the trade-in rates, what people do with their Jeeps after they have had one. They had the Jeep experience, now they've come to their senses, and they're going to buy a nice SUV, or even a passenger car for that matter. And typically the reason that happens is because they don't take a long enough test drive, which needs to be 15, 20 miles. The dealership won't let them take it home and try it on in their driveway. You ever heard of buyer's remorse? Sometimes people just don't want to admit it, that they made a mistake. Or maybe they just wanted to collect ducks, plastic ducks, for their dashboard. They need that for their ego. But those kind of feelings fade once you experience how hard they are to get in and out of all the time, how badly they ride, how little storage space there is. Just make sure that whatever you're committing to buy and pay those $700, $800, $900 a month payments for, that is something that's really going to work for you and your family. I was lying in my bed last night thinking about what would it have been like if I woke up the next morning, looked out in my driveway, and instead of seeing my $40,000 camper that's now worth $20,000, there was a brand new fifth wheel that I couldn't even pull with my truck, $150,000 camper sitting there that was 13 feet off the ground. I would have been sick. So I did something that everybody should do. Go home and think about it. It didn't take us that long, though. We knew by the time we pulled the door handles on our truck in the parking lot at Camping World, we ain't buying a new camper. So I can't help you with camper questions. Well, maybe some camper questions. Maybe how much truck you need to be able to tow a certain weight of camper. I can help you with that. But anything else when it comes to cars, I can help. 423-552-2020 is my personal cell phone number. You can text me or you can call me. If you call me, it'll probably go to voicemail. But I will call you back. Or you can send me an email to lennylawson2020@gmail.com, and I'll see you on the next edition of My Car Guru.